Hi, I'm Punk Brock, YouTube's premier touring musician slash punk rock VTuber, and today I would like to share with you a tale of when a band of mine did our first tour in the United States of America. Two of us, myself and a person that I'm going to call Timmy for the purposes of this story, went on a flight to New Jersey via Dublin, and then the other two guys in the band went a couple of days later, and they just took a direct flight from wherever to New Jersey, which was, you know, probably smarter. But the reason, we'll get into the reasons. So myself and Timmy, we lived together at the time, and so we woke up early and we got in a taxi to the airport. So the taxi driver arrives and he opens the boot of his car, or the trunk for my Americans, and it's just something to keep in mind. It's one of those that opens, he kind of like has to reach up and pull it down closed, okay? Remember that, it's important. Foreshadowing! So he loads the two bags into the back and he closes the door, and then we get in the cab, and it's a 15-minute journey. About halfway through, we go over a speed bump and there's like a thud, and we don't really think anything of it at the time. But like in hindsight, ugh. So we get to the airport and he opens the trunk and he presents to us the single bag that is back there. Single bag, one bag. One of the bags has gone missing. Now the thud makes more sense. Timmy's bag fell out. So we look at the taxi driver and we're just like, get back in the taxi. We have to drive back and try and find the bag. And it's just, I've never seen a taxi driver more nonplussed about something. It's just like, oh, really? It's like, yeah, my guy. Yeah, you f***ed up. Get back in the taxi. We're going to drive back and find Timmy's bag. And so we drive back, and it's about halfway through this fruitless journey. Me and Timmy are looking out the window each side to try and see any sign of this bag. No sign of it. But then at one point I noticed that the guy is still charging us. We're still on the meter. So I have to kind of get a little bit Karen with him and just be like, hey, turn that off. Like, stop charging us. You f***ed up here, my guy. You didn't close the door properly. Our bag fell out. Stop charging us. And he's apologetic, and he's like, oh, I'm sorry. You won't get charged for this. Like, yeah, I should think not, my guy. But essentially, it's fruitless. We don't find the suitcase, and we have to go back to the airport and basically get on the flight with one bag. Timmy doesn't have a bag. So we're taking two flights. Like I mentioned, we're going via Dublin because there's a customs office in Dublin. So if there's any issues we're a bit anxious because it's our first time traveling to America to play gigs. So we're a little bit anxious. So we're just like, look, if anything goes wrong, at least if we have any problems in Dublin, it's only an hour flight back home. At least then we don't get all the way to America and then get told we can't come in and have to take a 10-hour flight all the way home. You know what I mean? I don't know. We're a bit anxious, as you'll see, for good reason. So we approach the customs desk, and I make the stupid mistake of letting Timmy go first. So Timmy goes up to the desk and he starts having this conversation with the customs officer, and after a minute or two, something terrible happens, which is this customs officer walks around the desk and leads Timmy not through the gate, but to a customs office out of sight. And I'm just stood there, just terrified, jaw on the floor, just like, oh, what the... And then it's my turn, and I go to the same customs officer that just dealt with Timmy. And she just looks down at the documents, and then she looks up at me and she says, what are you guys doing? And I'm just like, what do you mean? And she's just like, what are you doing? It's like, well, we're going to America. Like, we're going to go stay with a family member, which is true. We were flying in to go stay with a family member. And we'll call this family member Clarice, okay? Clarice. And I say, we're going to go stay with Clarice. And she looks at me and she says, well, the other guy said it was Clarice. And at that moment, it dawns on me that an ongoing bit between myself and Timmy was that I pronounced this family member's name Clarice instead of Clarice, which any sane person would realize was a bit. But Timmy, no. Timmy rolled with it, genuinely thought that was the name. Not that this is it's oh my God. So after a brief conversation, she kind of like begrudgingly stamps me in. And yeah, I get stamped in and I'm waiting for my plane and I'm texting Timmy and I'm like, hey, what's going on? And he's like, he's clearly upset and like scared, which, you know, understandable. and I'm getting like single word messages. I'm getting like single word responses, like security. And I'm like, what's going on? He's like, don't know. I'm like, oh, Jesus. So eventually I got on the plane and I wait and I wait and the seat next to me remains empty and the plane doors close and I take off. Sans Timmy. And so I get on Wi-Fi on the plane and I'm messaging him and he basically says, yeah, as soon as the flight took off, they weren't interested. I didn't even get questioned. They just said, oh, well, the flight's gone now. What's the point in questioning you? You can go. Cool. So he's like, well, what do I do? And they're like, well, you can try and get on another flight tomorrow. And it's at this point that the stories start to conjoin. Because you remember at the start of this story that Timmy lost his bag and was trying to board a flight to America without a bag. He'd never been to America before. So I think we put 2 and 2 together and realized that it's probably quite suspicious for somebody to go to America for the first time ever without any kind of luggage. So I get onto it and I'm just like, look, I've found a place. Go to this place, buy a suitcase, buy some clothes, try and go on this flight again tomorrow. And so he does that. He finds somewhere to stay for the night. He goes back to security the next day and he approaches the security person. It turns out this security person is the same person that he spoke to in the security office yesterday. And so, but this person apparently doesn't recognize, whatever, they deal with a lot of people. But he questions Timmy, and Timmy's just like clearly just like fed up and scared and just like, please let me on. And the guy eventually stops him and he's just like, hey, you seem really nervous. Like, what's going on? And Timmy just like kind of like, it's just like, yeah, I am scared and I am nervous. You didn't let me on a flight tomorrow and I need to be on a flight. Like, do you understand? And so I think the guy is just like, all right, this guy isn't trying anything funny. He's got a suitcase today. Let's just fucking let him go. And so he stamps him and he gets on the plane. Oh, so the lesson of this story, my friends, is make sure the taxi driver closes the door properly when you load your bags into the back and you're trying to fly to America. Goodbye.